That's good. We have a shark, a great white shark.
Thanks for that.
So I show this image not to scare you, but to be able to look face to face to a great white. It's pretty amazing experience, that's for sure. And this is a hammerhead shark taken in the Galapagos Islands. And you have to be very careful with your bubbles because they're very afraid of bubbles. So you have to hold your breath as the shark comes closer, closer, closer. And my eyes were popping out and I was just about not able to make it, but clicked the shot off and then breathed. This is to show that this is a Galapagos shark, and sharks, the shark isn't after all these fish. A lot of people think that sharks, when there's a school of fish, they'll just run into the fish, but they won't go for the fish that are very healthy. They'll go for the slow ones, the sick ones. You know, they cull out all the old and sick fish so that the stocks are healthy, and that's what they do. Mostly go after, and they can catch those fish. They couldn't catch these fish because they're very healthy. This was an unfortunate thing that we saw. There were about 14 of these. They're big-eyed Thresher Sharks, and they had put these nets up all over the place where we were diving, and had ensnared a lot of these sharks and some dolphins and some lobsters and such. It's the only big-eyed Thresher Shark I've ever seen. These guys are white-tip reef sharks. If you look at it, you'll see them lying against each other. They like to spoon or to cuddle, and you see there's quite a few of them. And the closer I got, the more they got a little agitated, and then this one starts to move, and then they all move, sort of like domino effect. This is a whale shark, the largest fish in the ocean. It's about, well, this one's about 22 feet, but they grow to 41 feet. They grow really large. And he's got a little remora. There's a couple of remoras actually alongside him. Those are sucker fish. They suck onto the fish and get any bits of food that the whale shark doesn't get.
Hi, Rich, I was going to interrupt you for. Is it possible to go full screen on your photos, or is that full screen right now?
I think it's full screen.
Okay, all right.
Sorry.
I'll mute.
These are called false killer whales. They were, the male is the longest. He's about 14 feet. And he immediately, when we got in the water, he would put himself in between us and the juveniles and the females. And I've never been in the water with such a loud animal, just whistling and screeching. And I kind of thought they were saying, hey, look, a couple of squeaky toys just got in the water. Let's go over there and play with them. But they were there for about 2 minutes, something like that. And then they went away. And there's, of course, always the dolphins. And what you do is you chase dolphins and you try and get the boat around to where they're going to be. Then you jump in the water and you hope that the dolphins pass you. Well, you jump in the water and they usually go around you. And so you get back in the boat and you head out again, get in front of them, jump in the water, and they go around you again, or they go underneath you. And we did this about 10 times, 10, 11 times. And finally, we got out there, and Nicholas and I, this other diver, were the only ones who got off the boat that time. And it was the one time that they actually turned around and looked at us. These guys are beautiful. They're giant manta rays, and they can be up to 18, 20 feet long, from wingtip to wingtip. And they're just the most gentle animals and the most graceful in the water. They like are flying in the water. Just amazing, amazing animals. And if you're lucky, then one will come and stop and literally look at you. This is probably one of the most incredible feelings I've ever felt, is when a wild animal is stopping, especially one that's 18 feet long, is stopping and acknowledging you and looking at you eye to eye. It's an amazing experience, just amazing. These guys are jacks with a school of scad, and you can't really see it, but if you look on the scad's faces, they're really afraid because what these guys do, they maneuver around them, and then they just dive bomb into the school of fish. And here's inside the school. I'm actually inside. I'm surrounded by fish. It's a very strange feeling because it's a three-dimensional environment. You have them above you, below you, to the left, right, diagonally, and they're swirling around, and you're getting really dizzy, you know, being inside this this massive school of fish. There is a lot of them. I always show this just to show that there's no, everybody's welcome in the fish world, even if you're different than the rest of them. You know, there's this whole school of fish, and then there's this one different one, and he's accepted along with everybody else. This guy is pretty funny. He's called a red lip batfish for obvious reasons, and he walks around on those legs and just really short distances. And he has a tail, and he can swim a little ways, but not a lot. But they hang out in pretty deep water, about 100 feet. And they're a strange looking character, that's for sure. Here's another one. This is called a frogfish, and that little thing coming off his nose is called a lure, and he will shake that lure back up and down and try and attract a fish. He stays very stationary, very still, and he looks like a sponge, or he looks like part of the reef, but he'll move that little thing, and then a fish will get close enough, and they're incredibly fast in a short burst. And so the fish will come close, and bam, you'll get him real fast, real quick. Now we're on the Channel Islands. That was all Mexico and the equator. And now we're in the Channel Islands. This is the state marine fish, the Garibaldi. And that's my son looking at him. They're pretty friendly. They're very territorial. So if you get in their space or near their eggs, they'll kind of try and shoo you away. Here's what he was looking at. I oftentimes think his eyes are like those stuffed animal eyes, you know, googly eyes. This was a two-spot octopus. I was photographing something on the reef, and I saw something move over to my left, and I turned around, and he was a big one, and they only they get about 6 feet, I think, 6 feet, and so he was moving, and I was trying to move my lights and get my exposure. You know, as Joan said, it's very difficult to be underwater. You have to worry about time and depth and your weight and buoyancy and all that. And you're trying to operate your camera. And I knew he was going to be coming off the reef. So I was trying to get ready. And he came up in this sort of Martha Graham pose, you know, this dancer's pose. And I shot the shot, and then he went down, he collapsed and went down to very deep. So I couldn't follow him, but I went straight back to the boat to see if I got the shot, and lucky thing I did. This guy's a nudibranch. He's very small. He's probably about a 1/2 inch or so. but very colorful. He's called a Spanish shawl. And they're like sea slugs, like the slugs in your garden, but they're a lot more beautiful, obviously, than your garden. I was thinking that if this guy was in my garden, I'd let him eat my tomatoes or my leaves or something. But they come in all sorts of colors and shapes and sizes, and there's just a million of it. Just they're the most beautiful things. They're really pretty. This is another type of slug. It's called a sea hare. And this sea hare it's the sexiest picture of a sea hare I've ever seen, is what it is. Because I was tossing him up in the water column. They are attached to the reef usually, but I was bored and I didn't have anything to do. So I got him and I gently pushed him up in the water column, and then I photographed him as he fell to the sea floor. And you know, you're not supposed to do this kind of stuff. I had a couple divers swim by me and wag their fingers at me in disgust. But it's a nice shot. This guy looks real scary. He's got sharp teeth. He's sort of serpent-like. You know, he's a green moray eel. He's behind these stickers of an urchin, but they're one of the most gentle, kind, I would say that, animals there are. They sometimes come out and they'll wrap around you, or they'll swim around out of their holes. And they're just, you know, you have a different sense of what an animal is like by its behavior, and not by its looks, not judging by a book by its cover, so to speak. And they're really quite shy and quite nice. But they have to, in order to breathe, they have to open and close their jaws. So that looks very menacing, but it's just the way they breathe. They have to move the water past their gills. This little guy is a blenny. He's a small guy. He's about a ½ inch or so, and is fearless. I mean, you imagine how big I am. I'm 6'2", and I've got this camera and lights and big black thing, and I come right up to him. I mean, up close, and he doesn't back away at all. You know, he doesn't. He just sort of is curious as to what you're doing there. This is what it looks like under the rigs, the oil rigs that are out there. There is just basically no place you can see now they clean the first 30 feet or so. So you see the pillars on the other behind it that are cleaned off. But this is what happens. There's so much life down there, and it just takes over. You know, those are scallops, the orange lip things, and little Corynactis sea anemones. Sometimes kelp takes on different shapes. You know, this kelp was whipping around in the current, and I caught it at this one moment that it kind of looks like that art museum in New York. I can't think what it's called right now, but it looks something like that. It's really beautiful, the kelp, the way the light comes through the kelp and then the light shining on the kelp is pretty nice. This is some more kelp. It's attached by a kelp holdfast at the bottom. They don't have roots that go into the ground. They have roots that go around the reef. So that is a kelp holdfast right there. And then some of the kelp. We have a lot of kelp out here in California. It's one of the reasons to go diving out here. Oh, well, there he is, a harbor seal. He was a little curious guy. I don't know how to say it. These guys are the acrobats of the sea. They're just so much fun to watch. You know, they just twist and turn, and they can make their bodies into any shape. They can turn corners on a dime. You know, it's why I've seen sometimes they've played with great white sharks, whereas a shark can't turn a corner as fast or as easy as they can. And so as long as they know where the shark is, there's no fear. It's when you get snuck up on that's when the shark gets them. But as long as they're aware of where the shark is, they're able to get away. And they're just a lot of fun. Once again, it's light coming through kelp. It's really wonderful that you know, there's forests of kelp, and this kelp can get 100 feet long or 200 feet long. So if you were in the redwoods, all you would be able to do is stand at the bottom and look up at the trees, at the redwood trees. You wouldn't be able to go up and down the tree. Whereas in the ocean, you can go up and down in the kelp stalks, and you find different life at different depths. So at the surface, you find different things at 30 feet down, 60 feet down, 100 feet down. You find different life. And it's home to, I don't know how many species, you know, different species of animals. Now we get into the colder water up north in Alaska. This is called a salmon shark. It's a cousin to a great white shark, and they're the fastest shark in the ocean. They can go 50 miles an hour, which is pretty darn fast. They're real shy. So it's really hard to get a good shot of them because you stay in the water and you find out where they are, and then you try and lure them in with a little fish, with anchovy, and not salmon, strangely enough. I think they were maybe misnamed or something because there were so many salmon around. They figured it was a salmon shark, but salmon doesn't draw them quite as well as sardines do. This is a fish eating an enemy. Big guy, really big. It's just a beautiful shot. This is a decorated war bonnet, and it's a serpent-like thing. You can see his body goes in the back there, and he's got this crown of, I don't know what they are, they're sort of growths on him, and they're very shy, and you come near them and they dart away. But this guy, for some reason, was hanging around, and he just stayed for a little while, maybe half a minute or so. So you better have your photography down pat before you meet one of these guys, because they're gonna take off. This is about the cutest fish in the sea. It's called a lump sucker, a spiny lump sucker. And they're about, oh geez, a quarter of an inch, maybe even smaller than that. They're really small guys. They have a sucker on the bottom. You can't see it on this shot, but a sucker on the bottom where they suck on to things. And they're pretty cute, I'd say. And this guy's a wolf eel. He's quite a shy guy himself, you know, and he's not really an eel. He's really a fish, but he's shaped like an eel. And a lot of times they look a lot like Muppets, like the Muppets on the TV show, but they're very gentle. They're not scary. They'll come out, and a lot of times you can pet them. You're not supposed to, but if it comes to you, then you know you can do that. But they like to eat urchins, so they have a real armored mouth, I guess you could say, because of all the spines of the urchins. So I've got to leave you with this picture for a second while I go to the bathroom. Sorry about that. I'll be right back.
All right, until Richard gets back, I just pop on here. I don't know if I mentioned it at the beginning that Richard is from Santa Barbara, California. And so that's why it's sort of an extra special treat that we were able to have him come in virtually for us tonight.
Oh, it's just wonderful, Joan.
If anybody has questions too, I would suggest just put them in the chat and we'll get to them afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, unless you know the answer to this one now about
Okay.
the shark, oops, the long one, long male and other females. Sorry.
What? Oh, that was okay. I'm sorry, but sorry I had to go there. So this guy, this is up by you guys. Most of this, the rest of the stuff, it's Puget Sound king crab, and this guy is like an armored tank. He is. In fact, when you approach him, he sort of curls up so that nothing. He's impervious to any sort of pushing or prodding, but he's brightly colored. And sometimes there's a lot more purple or blue, in them, but he's quite a guy. This is for all the divers, the sort of holy grail, the rock greenling, and because they usually hang around about 6 to 10 feet in the surf zone, so it's very hard to. You're being tossed one way and another way, by the surge. And while this guy is hiding, and but I've had one come and land in my hand. I mean, he is literally sitting in my hand, and I've got to pet him. Once again, it's amazing that this wild animal will choose a particular diver to sit in his hand and let him pet him. It's just not a common thing. But these guys are also territorial, and they'll come at you. They'll sort of nip at you or nip at the camera sometimes if their eggs are near. But this is a female. This guy. Now up there you got giant Pacific octopus, and we were looking for octopus one time, and we saw this octopus in its den, and we would get a crab, which is what they like to eat, and we put the crab outside their den, and hopefully they would come out. They taste with their suckers. That's how they taste things. So hopefully an arm or two would come out and they taste the crab and they would come out. Well, it didn't happen. 2-3 days gone by. And believe me, sitting outside in 45-degree water for an hour, waiting for this octopus to come out is no fun. So we got this one rock, and we tied the crab to the rock, poor crab. And the octopus eventually came out, but he went right past the crab and he came right at me. And so I'm trying to get my, photographer takes over and I'm trying to get the lights right and the camera right and everything. And he sticks his arm out, and what he's doing is he's tasting me, see if I'm a delicious morsel or something. So that's what that arm is doing. And then after he does that, he retracted back and sat on this stone for a while. And if you can see down here at the bottom, there's these little shrimp that are kind of like, oh, great leader, are kind of, bow downing to him. I don't know. Bowing down, that's what it is, bowing down to him. But he was 9 feet long. We knew that because we had a pole that was 9 feet long, and he had both tentacles at each end. But he was a real, and as he went back into the den, he grabbed the crab. So he did want the crab. This is another type of nudibranch, like the Spanish shawl. It's called a hooded nudibranch. And it's really interesting, you know, that you can see inside of him and all his little heart and all his, I guess they're blood vessels of some sort. And as you know, the water's very dirty down there, but it gives it some texture to the photograph. And this is what the hooded nudibranch looks like when it's open. The part on the top opens up and lets all the little things that float into it and eats them that way. And there you can see that there's some right here. There's some ones around and they're closed, and there's an open one, another open one right there. That's a lot of moon jellies. These are called moon jellies, and they're called a smudge because when you come up on the boat on the surface, it looks like there's a smudge in the water, all this white stuff, and then you dive down, and they're just everywhere. There's thousands and thousands of them, and within this thousands and thousands of moon jellies, there's one female. She's a purple one. It's not in this shot because I couldn't find it, but one of the other divers found it. And I guess she is busy. This is called a lion's mane jellyfish. And you want to stay away from this one, but it's beautiful. So beautiful. These guys are stellar sea lions, and they're probably 7 feet long, 7-8 feet long, 400 or 500 pounds. And they are the most amazing animals. They will come right up to you like this and grab you and pull at you and sit on you, and you'll have 3 or 4 of them around you, and it's a lot of fun. It's intimidating sometimes because that's a big mouth from an 8-foot animal. That mouth is bigger than my head, and so it needs a little dental work there, it looks like. But we keep going up there. There's a place called Hornby Island, and we keep going up there every year. I think I've been going about 7 years, something like that. And we just get in the water with these guys, and they are so beautiful. You can see how big his head is. I mean, he isn't scared, Mike, but he looks a little worried. That's a really big one. So they're pretty cute. I went through this slideshow a little faster than I thought I was going to. So that's the last image, unfortunately. And it is inappropriate to call this planet Earth when it's quite clearly the ocean.